Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Katie and I love to read. Today I wanted to talk to you about a book I recently read called Early Riser by Jasper Fforde. This is the first book I've read by Fforde, but it probably won't be the last because I really enjoyed it. It is like equal parts comedy, horror, satire, fantasy, sci-fi. Sounds fun, right? It's set in a world where humanity has evolved to hibernate through the winter, which if you're from a cold, snowy, long-wintered place like me, sounds kind of like an attractive deal. Hibernation is not without its risks, because if you don't put on enough body weight in order to make it all the way through the winter, you'll literally just waste away and you won't survive to see spring rise. So to combat this, there is Hibernate, which is a corporation that has developed a drug called Morphenox, which makes people stop dreaming, and then people aren't spending their calories on dreams, and it helps them get through the winter. Potential side effects, unfortunately, are that when you wake up from your hibernation on Morphenox, you don't actually wake up, you're brain dead. Stinks, right? They call it being a night walker. What do they do with night walkers? They train them to do menial manual labor, such as washing dishes or sweeping up, things like that. And then once they're done with the manual labor, they've run their course, they, chop them up and turn them into transplants. Ooh, yikes, I don't like that. They call it parting them out. Yeah. Oh, also they have a penchant for cannibalism. Did I mention that? Nightwalkers. They eat people. They try to eat people when they're hungry. So it's in your best interest if you're around a nightwalker to like keep a Snickers in your pocket, you know? Like literally they talk about Snickers in the novel. Our protagonist is Charlie, who becomes a member of the Winter Consul Service, which is like the law enforcement of the winter. They stay awake, they overwinter, they don't hibernate in order to protect all the people who are sleeping. So Charlie stays awake for their first winter, and wacky hijinks ensue, including a viral dream that has been making people kind of like go crazy. And that's your novel. Great winter novel, highly recommend. I do want to talk about the world building real quick though, because for me, it was not what I expected in terms of how the author shared the world building with us. At the beginning of each chapter, we get like a little, blurb from a nonfiction piece from the universe. For example, this one is about the Winter Consul. They have blurbs about the nuclear reactors that they use in their dormitoriums, things like that. So that really helps you parse out the world. But then also there are a lot of footnotes in the book, but the footnotes aren't always helpful as far as understanding things. All right, so here's my favorite footnote in the book. And it explains why I've got mixed feelings about footnotes. So Charlie is being interviewed for a new job. Jack Logan, who is a tier 1 sire, asks, "I've seen you about Worthing. You one of mine?" Charlie says, "No, sir. I'm a surrogacy that turned out wrong." "On account of your head?" "Yes, on account of my head." And then there's a footnote that says, "More about that later." So we are 23 pages into the book, and most authors jump at the chance to physically describe their character, and this one is actively avoiding it. Just teased a little mystery that something is wrong with Charlie's head, but won't say what. And it is not until a fair bit later in the novel that we actually finally know what's going on. And that is how Charlie/Jasper handles a lot of the world building in the novel. They'll tease a little bit, they'll name something, and then give it a capital, like the Gronk. Mention that on page 1, don't know what it is for 100 pages, don't know. Or villains with a capital V. Oh, it's a population of people in the winter, but we don't know anything about them until much later. When I first started reading this novel, full disclosure, I started it more than once because I was so frustrated and confused that I ended up giving up and starting later. But despite initially feeling like that was a serious drawback of the book, it is now one of my favorite parts because it made the whole process of reading the novel really exciting in terms of there always being something, new and exciting to learn about the world. When you finally figure out what the villains are, it's such a cool moment. It's like, okay, yeah, that was worth waiting for. But it's not a book for an impatient reader. So I would say, brace yourself, prepare yourself to often feel like you want to know more than you actually know. Another really interesting thing about this novel is the intersection of the subject matter and the tone of the novel. So being that there are basically zombies walking around doing the dishes, I think is a good example of that. Because zombies, cannibalistic, brain-dead people wandering around, kind of creepy, kind of scary, but they're handled so casually and with such mundane indifference that rather than having the novel feel actually scary, there is this ennui that just permeates everything. The world of Early Riser is really difficult and it's a tough world and it's dangerous, but it's so normal to them. It's so normal to Charlie and everyone else in this world that most people aren't freaking out about things that we as the reader feel like we should be freaking out about, which in turn reminds me of all of these things that make me want to freak out about our world. This book was published in 2018. And since then, we have had a global sickness, and some economic issues, and some people seriously looking for labor reform and, all of that jazz. This novel touches on things in such a way where it feels really relevant. Spoiler territory. If you think you might want to read this book, and I think you should, I think it's a really good book, totally worth the read. Skip to the end. I'll give you a little timestamp. I don't know if it's this side or this side. Spoilers are coming. Are you ready? If you haven't clicked away, there's going to be spoilers. Okay, so people as commodities. That is the big thing that really stood out to me in this novel in terms of their reproductive, rights and goings on. In order to keep the population steady, there is the Sisters of Perpetual Gestation, which are nuns, but instead of taking a vow of celibacy, they just try and pop out as many babies as possible with as much genetic diversity as possible. And then people also have genetic tiers for reproduction. So Jack Logan is a tier 1 sire, and they talk about him having eye-popping siring fees. So there is this economy based around reproduction. There's even a character who ends up having her genetic rights sold while she's still a minor, so that when she's 18, she has to reproduce, which is horrifying. And there's a plot point about her trying to be able to repurchase her reproductive rights, which have been sold. So people as commodities in that right, but then also, and then here's the major spoiler. So again, if you want to avoid spoilers, 5, 4, 3. Okay, so here's the major spoiler. Nightwalkers, remember how I said they were brain dead? They're not. They're just in a bit of a coma. So, yeah, these people who are literally being used as unpaid slave labor without their consent while they're asleep, and then being hacked up and then used as body parts for transplants. Yeah, they're still alive, and Hybertech knows and doesn't care because it's to Hybertech's financial benefit to have, unpaid labor and, sell transplants. Yeah. So that for me is the big thing that I really took away from this novel, is that people are treated like commodities, at least in this world. And it also made me think about how we are treated as commodities in our own world. So if you want to ruminate on, the dystopia that is our reality through a very unfamiliar dystopia. So, in conclusion, this book is a delight. I think you'll enjoy it. If you're looking for a good comic, satirical dystopian novel set in a harsh winter where people hibernate, you might enjoy this. I thought it was a really unique experience set in a fantastic world. I didn't even get to all of the stuff that literally made me laugh while I was reading this. It's so good. I'd love to know, if you've already read this book, what your take on it was, and if you have similar or different opinions from me about it, if you enjoyed it. I can really see this book not being for everyone, but I loved it. Or if you have any more recommendations, I might give some of Fforde's earlier novels a shot, because I thought it was delightful. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to me ramble about a book. If you enjoyed it, please consider hitting the like button. It would mean a lot to me. It does really help out my little baby channel. And if you want to see more videos like this, maybe consider subscribing. I will probably be covering more books in the future, so maybe I'll see you soon. All right, bye.
Are you struggling to put on your winter weight this year? Have you been dreading slumber down since your pudding bonuses were cut? Or maybe you just have a naturally low BMI and an overactive metabolism, and no matter what you do, you just can't seem to gain enough to be truly confident surviving the long hibernation. Well, now, there's finally a solution to all your winter wastage with Morphenox. Morphenox reduces your hibernation calorie expenditure by up to 30% and is the only medication certified by the Ministry of Sleep to cure you of your dreams. Your friendly neighborhood corporation, Hybertech, made the revolutionary discovery that dreams deplete your hard-earned winter fat reserves, ravaging your calories at an accelerated pace. By suppressing your dream state, Morphenox makes every calorie last, enabling you to truly sleep easy this hibernation. Side effects include headache and mild hallucinations. Rare risk of cognitive death presented as a pseudosentient mobile vegetative state with a tendency towards cannibalistic urges. Talk to your doctor about Morphenox and live to see another spring. Brought to you by Hybertech. Everything of use but the yawn.